it'll be interesting to see how it all came about, though.
Well, it's been simmering for a while, hasn't it? First time one of the parties has really drawn a line in the sand and said, we need to sort this out ASAP, sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
And this man, well, he's right amongst any of the news when it comes to the NRL. Yeah, he is so popular, this guy, especially on this show. We've made his own intro, so here we go. Oh, Danny Weiler from Channel 9, The Dirt, joins us on Sportsday. How are you, Dan?
Mate, that sounds like a Matt Rogers production to me.
Yes, it does. We know you get
Rat.
you get all the dirt, so we want to know what was the catalyst for this? Did it happen overnight, or did it happen in days gone by? When did this all break, Danny? Was it just today?
Look. So there was a board meeting yesterday,
Yep.
and I'd heard leading into that Ben Hunt was going to be a topic of discussion, and Michael Chammas and Michael works for the Herald, worked on the story, and it was pretty evident that something was going to happen sooner or later, and it's happened that the board have said, all right, Ben Hunt is allowed to go and look. The interesting part about this is that it's what is it, a couple of weeks now before the November 1 trade period when he's allowed to go and talk to other clubs for 2026. What's interesting is that I don't know if Ben Hunt got a lot of joy out of getting that sort of message from the Dragons that you can go and talk now, because he's been talking about this publicly and privately for, I reckon, over a year. I remember breaking a story during Origin, I'm pretty sure it was last year, saying that he not only wanted to get out of the Dragons, but he wanted out immediately. And that was 100% right. And I think Ben even backed it up eventually. And he did want out immediately, and he'd had enough. He was sick of the way the club was being run. Probably the lack of support he was getting, the lack of assistance in leadership. And he felt very much like it was almost like a one-man band in a lot of ways, and he was having to do a lot of the stuff as a senior player, and he felt the responsibility needed to be shared to some degree. And, so it's been going on pretty much since then. There was, obviously, he wanted out. The club said no, like you said. Flano probably needed him to have some stability at that club. But it was always going to come to this, really. It just felt like it was a unhappy marriage, and no amount of counselling or support or conversation was going to be able to save it. And to the board's credit, at least they've got on the position now where they're saying, okay, Ben, you go look around. Now, it is in theory for 26, because that's when Ben doesn't have a contract, but that's when, they're not saying to go walk out the door now, but you'd think if he could get a deal for 25 somewhere, I think he'll go. I think that, provided, this is the thing that Shane Flanagan likes to work on, is that he wants some sort of trade for it. He wants something in return, and that's where it's difficult, because I don't know exactly what is a decent return, or decent, for a better word, swap for Ben Hunt. And that might be involved money as well, and players, and that's where it gets tricky, because if it's suddenly involving another player, it's not easy, right? I mean, and look, Ben has indicated he wants to return to Queensland. I don't know who's got the money in Queensland to afford him without a trade. And I don't know, I mean, would you trade a up-and-coming superstar like Jaden Campbell for Ben Hunt?
Well, we're talking about this off air, Dan. We're talking about this off air, Rad and I. We were saying that the Gold Coast Titans have this gluttony of speed with Keanu Kinney, AJ Brimson and Jaden Campbell. Can they keep all three of them? Well, they'd love to, but if they're going to get someone who can probably bring them some instant success and have to forego one of them, it's actually probably not a bad trade for both clubs.
Yeah, but then if suddenly Jaden Campbell's a superstar for the next 5 years, Titans fans are, like jumping up and down, aren't they? So it's a tricky one. So it's something they've got to consider carefully. Look, was the final straw Ben saying that Clint Gutherson come and play 6, which is Kyle Flanagan's position? It feels like that would have been a factor. I haven't talked to the Dragons directly about that, but I can't imagine that would have gone down well at all. And it shows that there must be some kind of like maybe division or maybe lack of confidence in Kyle Flanagan from Ben Hunt, because I'm not speaking on his behalf, but it's just that comment. It allows people like me and I guess your listeners and you to read something into it. We may be reading too much into it, but that's the impression that comment gives. So, and look, there are going to be other options for Ben Hunt. I reckon Sydney clubs would be mad not to look at him. If there are, I've seen Knights fans calling that they'd like to have him there as well.
Yep.
Bulldogs fans are reaching out saying, "We love you, Ben. We want you there." And you can be sure that those sort of clubs, and even the Rabbitohs. I don't know how much money they've got. They've signed Lewis Dodd. Wayne Bennett's there. Again, I don't know their cap situation, but there are clubs in Sydney who'd be going, "Well, hang on. Experienced playmakers are very hard to come by."
Yeah, they are.
Really hard to come by.
Is this been stemming back a lot longer, the underlying factor that the arm's length relationship between Flanagan and Ben Hunt stemmed from probably the relationship he had with Anthony Griffin and his disapproval of his sacking at the time?
Yeah, I think, look, you can't discount that as part of it. But unfortunately, Ben Hunt doesn't get to decide who the coach of the Dragons is. And Anthony Griffin was not having any level of serious success, and the view going forward by the Dragons was he was not the man for the job. So Ben Hunt, whether he liked it or not, had to suck that up and wear it that he's I think we'd call him a mate, Anthony Griffin, wasn't going to be there. But I think that there are other issues at play other than just that. But I don't think you could rule that out as a factor as well. I think you've got to consider that. And so, boys, what do you reckon? Is he? I'd say I'm not sure. I think he's 34 or 35 now, around that age, and he'd want 2 years. Has he got 2 years in him?
I think he has.
I think he's got 2 years in him.
That's the question you've got to ask yourself.
Here's what I think, Danny. He's been very vocal about coming to Queensland. He's been very vocal about coming home. I can't see the Broncos fitting him in, and I can't see them taking him with Reynolds there. I don't think the Dolphins are going to take him with Katoa there as their half, and Jake Clifford I think has found his home in the number 7 jersey up there at the North Queensland Cowboys. The only really option north of the border, I think, is the Gold Coast Titans, and they do have some pieces of the puzzle that they could move around. And I just can't imagine if he leaves the Dragons. I just can't imagine him staying in Sydney at a Sydney club.
Yeah, look, I think he will leave the Dragons, and he's going to have to find a home. And I think that part of the frustration that the Hunt camp would have right now is that they have been moving, sort of asking for this or been indicating, and the Dragons have known for some time that Ben Hunt is not happy. But the timing of it, a couple of weeks out from when he could actually start negotiating for 26, doesn't give him that big a head start. So I don't think his camp would have jumped at this and go, "Oh, well, great, thanks a lot." Or if it happened 8 months ago, or whenever they were truly keen for it to happen, that would have carried a bit of goodwill with Ben Hunt. So it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, like you said, it's because of the logjam of players and clubs having a lot of their roster sorted out. That makes it more difficult. And I wouldn't rule out a Sydney club, Rad. I know he's indicated that, but In the past, I know he's had a chat with some people from the Bulldogs.
Yep. Chinese feed with Gus.
I know that. Well, I don't know if it was. I don't know if that's happened, but they do have a good halfback at the moment, or a halfback on the rise in Toby Sexton.
Yeah, I think he's very good.
I feel like I know the players really like Toby Sexton, and I know that the coach has been happy with the job he's done.
Mm.
Is Ben Hunt a better player for the next 2 years than Toby Sexton?
Depends
Sure.
what club, and if you need immediate success, which the Bulldogs don't need because they're on the way up. But if you need immediate success, I think Ben Hunt can get you that. And whatever success looks like, it might be a team that hasn't played in the finals for a few years. Playing finals is success, and I think Ben Hunt can bring that to a couple of sides.
Mm. Mm. Well, I mean,
look, if you're prepared to play hooker, I mean the Parramatta Eels need a hooker.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he's prepared to do that. Would you guys say to Ben, if you were doing this deal, whether it's in Queensland or in Sydney or whoever, would you say to him, okay, Ben, look, we really want you, but how about you give the Origin stuff a rest now because you've sort of been there for a long time and we want you fresh for the whole season, given that you are mid-30s?
Yep. I think it's a fair request.
Yeah, it'd be a good stipulation to put into the contract, particularly if you were going to sell the farm for him, so to speak, or move some players for him to get him for a couple of years and give him that extra year. He'll be 35 at the start of next year, Danny. So I think you're definitely going to get a good year out of him, and you might get, I reckon you'd pay the freight for him next year, and maybe a little bit of a discount.
We'll give you 2 years if you give up on Origin.
Yeah,
for the next 2 years. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, which is probably not unreasonable.
Yeah.
But to Hunt's credit, for whoever wants to criticise his form and whatever, he's still a rep player. He's 18th man for Australia.
Yeah.
So bag him all you want and say that he's not that good anymore. Well, he's currently in the top 18 players available to play for his country. So I think he deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah.
Boys, I'm about to drive into my underground area, so I'm going to probably lose you.
Yeah. Hey Dan, thanks very much. Late notice, join us on Sportsday with that latest news, and while your chauffeur parks your car and you get in your elevator to go to your penthouse, have a great night.
Enjoy, mate.
Please. Scott, I really liked you up until that point. Anything for you, Rat?
Good on you, Dirt. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Dan. It's great that he was able to catch up with us on such late notice. It's a good debate. And I think he asked some really good questions as well. So whether you're waiting for a bus, a train, a ferry or a plane, it's the perfect time to add some thrill. With Keno Go, all you got to do is download the app now, start playing, and Dragons fans, please weigh in. What are your thoughts? And 0457 736 736, or Kiwi listeners who are Dragons fans, 8833. Let's get to a break here on Sports Day.